Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video we have another writing check and surprise surprise it's another writing task 2 academic essay. Of course we start as always by analysing the question or reading the question, analysing the question, thinking about the question, paraphrasing the question, thinking about the structure connected to the question. I like to do a lot of question analysis. Okay, let's have a look. Some people believe that professionals, which kind of professionals? Well, professionals like doctors and engineers should be required to work in the country where they did their training. So, well, let's just make sure we understand this. So, there are some people who think that if you're a professional, like especially if you're a doctor or an engineer, if you do your training in Australia, then there should be some rule that says you must work in Australia. If you do your training in Bangladesh, you must do your work in Bangladesh. If you train to become a doctor or an engineer in the USA, then some people think that you must work as a doctor or an engineer in the USA. So that's what some people think. But others believe that they, professionals like doctors and engineers, they should be free to work in another country if they wish. So these people believe that if you are a doctor or an engineer and you do your training in the USA, it's fine if you move to France and work to France. Similarly, if you do your training in Germany, it's okay. After you finish your training, yep, you can go to Venezuela and work as a doctor or an engineer in Venezuela. The requirement for the candidate here is to discuss both these views. Very important, discuss both these views and give your own opinion. So you must do these two things. So this is one of the classic IELTS or classic essay questions called a balanced essay. Introduction will be just some background information about the subject, some reference to the question. You know, there is a debate among people about where professionals should work. And also, I'd like to see some type of thesis statement just saying in this essay I will explore both positions, or in this essay I will discuss both positions. And also, it would be nice, I would like to see the candidate's own opinion here. I don't want to see the reasons why. I don't want to hear the candidate's arguments. I would like to know, though, which side the candidate is on in the introduction. It's not, for me, as critical as a do you agree or disagree essay, but still, I'd like to see the candidate's opinion in the introduction. But then in body paragraph 1, we should get one side of the argument. Why do some people think professionals like doctors and engineers should have to work in the country where they did their training? Body paragraph 1. Then body paragraph 2, why do other people think that, no, actually these people should be free to work wherever they want? Why do people think that? And then in the conclusion, maybe a brief summary, or yeah, for sure, a very brief summary of those positions. But most importantly, this is where I want to see the candidate's position, the candidate's opinion, what they believe and why. Okay, let's see if we get that. Let's take a look at the actual task. Sorry about this, 1 second. There we go, nice. All right, so how many paragraphs first of all? Paragraph 1, great. Paragraph 2, great. Paragraph 3, great. Paragraph 4, great. And candidate has given me the amount of words, number of words, 314, great. Looks like 318. So, of course, 250, you must write a minimum of 250 words. I usually aim for 280, not more than 300, but 318, I'm not going to worry about that. So we can jump straight in. Okay, freedom of choice, nice. To where? Freedom to choose where, or freedom of choice about where to work, but not freedom of choice to where. That's very strange there. Or just freedom of choice where to work is an extremely important subject. Okay, But that's very generic, isn't it? You could start any essay with education is an extremely important subject. The environment is an extremely important subject. Freedom of choice where to work is an extremely important subject. So I don't really like overly generic language. Some people think that experts like doctors and engineers have to work. Well, it's not that they think that they have to, it's they think that they should have to. And there is a small, very small difference there in the modality between they have to do it, describing an obligation, with they should have to do it, describing an optimal situation. So should have to means that's the good idea, and have to means that it just describes that there is an obligation. So just a small, tiny problem with the modality. Okay, but have to work in their own country. Not in their own country. It's the country where they studied and trained. So I like this, where they studied and trained. Cool. But not necessarily their own country. Because they could be from Australia, and then they move to France and they do their training. Australia is still their own country, but France is the place where they did their training. So their own country isn't quite right here. Okay. But where they studied and trained, fine. While others think that they should be free to work wherever they want. Okay, so we get a very direct paraphrase of the question. I think in writing task 1, it's perfectly fine to just use a very, very direct paraphrase. I like to see original thoughts, background information about the subject, a paraphrase with a reference to the question, not such a brutally direct paraphrase, but okay. My opinion is closer to the latter one, so good use of latter, so that means the second one. So the candidate believes that they should have to work in the country where they did their training. Cool. Oh, nice use of the ampersand here. Not the ampersand, sorry, the semicolon. Ampersand is the and sign. Semicolon, however, perfectly acceptable. We can use full stop, however, comma, or semicolon, however, comma. Perfectly fine. Good punctuation. Good. All good, all good, all good. However, I believe that they should pay a reasonable fine in order to move abroad. Okay. Fair enough. Not sure about a fine, maybe. Okay, but let's see. Okay, some might argue, well, some do argue actually. Some might argue that professionals must work, should be required to. So must work, maybe it's okay. A strong advice, like really, you must work. Yeah, some might argue that professionals must work where they had trained. Okay, but we've had that the second. It's fine. Just a little bit of a repetition of ideas that we have this. You've already said this. Some people think that experts like doctors and engineers have to, and then some might argue that professionals must work where they had trained and studied. So maybe starting it slightly different in a less repetitive way, like one reason why people believe that professionals must work where they did their training is to compensate blah 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 blah, but we do get there as a way to compensate for the money that had been spent on them. So candidate uses a lot of past perfect here already, so this shows some variety. This shows some good language. Might argue that professionals must work where they had trained. Now, is this really? I don't know. I think past perfect. I don't see a reason to use past perfect here, because this is present. They must work where they had trained. Past perfect is used when we talk about past before the past, and this is just past before the present. And so I don't really. While it's good to see a candidate is attempting past perfect, the control and accuracy of past perfect isn't exactly right. I thought there was another example of past perfect in there. Okay, maybe not. Okay, in other words, but this is a good point. In other words, nice signposting language. So now we should get some explanation. Do we need an explanation? Yeah, maybe this point could be re-explained in a simpler way. Free education is available in many countries, which means governments invest heavily in that area. Good. But that's not, you're not re-explaining here. You're saying, in other words, but then you're just adding one part of it. So that's not covering the as a way to compensate for the money that had been spent on them. So your other words isn't really an effective paraphrase of what you're trying to paraphrase. Now, you might do that later, but when you say furthermore, this is signposting language to say that, okay, we're going to move on now. So I like furthermore, fine, but just a little bit strange with the logical flow here. Furthermore, governments, I think you know how to spell governments, no? Maybe you don't, I'm not sure. It's not in the question, so okay. But yeah, we have a spelling mistake with governments, fine. Governments give various grants and scholarships. Very nice vocab here. Grants, nice. Scholarships, nice. Very suitable for the theme. To students. Intellectually proficient. Okay, this is... Governments give various grants and scholarships to students, comma, intellectually proficient. This is just unnecessary. We can just put a huge strikeout through this. Just don't think we need it at all. I don't know why this is there. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't do anything. Just confuses the reader. What do you mean? Scholarships to students who are intellectually proficient, maybe? So yeah, maybe just poor linking here. So as to, I really like the so as to. Nice little way of expressing purpose. Very nice. So as to make graduate studies easier for them. It's not just graduate studies though, is it? There's a variety of different levels. I don't know why the candidate here is focusing on graduate studies. Seems strange. Higher education, that could be good to make higher education easier for them. Easier maybe could be, you could find a better word here, like more stress-free or more financially viable. Just easier feels just slightly basic and not very academic, just slightly. As a result, governments want their professionals to work in their motherland. No, they don't want professionals to work in their motherland. There, who are you talking about? Professionals? That's not what the task wants. So, again, Australian person moves to France and does her training in France. The French government in this situation doesn't want the professional to work in their motherland. They want the professional to work in the country where they did their training, which is different sometimes to their motherland. So not very precise here. In order to see the outcome of these investments. But the idea is clear. You've explained the idea clearly. Okay. Some others, on the other hand, okay, you can see it's too much, right? Just on the other hand, there are those who believe, or just others believe. Some others on the other hand. So it's a bit overkill with the cohesive devices. Believe has a spelling mistake. That people should be free to work in a foreign country. Again, it's not really about a foreign country, it's about a different country to where they did their training. So the candidate has in their idea that only French people study in France, or only Australian people study in Australia, or only Bangladeshi people study in Bangladesh. So it's not, yeah. Anyway, should be free to work in a foreign country if they wish, since it is more democratic. That's not really well explained. What does that mean? It's more democratic. I'm thirsty for more information on what you mean here. In fact, possibly good signposting language if it links to something. Freedom of choice is one of the basic human rights. I don't know one of the basic human rights. Why not? Freedom of choice is a basic human right. With one of the, we like to use superlatives here. One of the most fundamental human rights, or one of the most basic human rights. But one of the basic human rights, I don't know. Freedom of choice is a basic human right. Seems enough for me. Don't know why one of the. Not a big problem. Okay. This implies, love this use of this, very nice. This implies that individuals should have the freedom to improve their quality of lives by moving abroad. Again, okay, and working in another country. Okay. Well, freedom of choice, having freedom of choice doesn't always imply that individuals should have the freedom to move abroad. Not necessarily. I know maybe I'm pedantic here, but just thinking in terms of like academic rigor. I have some background in philosophy, so it helps to pick apart these arguments. I don't think that freedom of choice being a basic human right implies that therefore individuals should have the freedom to move to another country. Don't think that's exactly right. But okay, idea is clear. For example, again, I really like the flow here. Some others da, 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 da. In fact da, 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 this implies da, 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 da. For example da, 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 da. So the flow is beautiful. Candidate really has good technical skills with flow. For example, a doctor in Iran might earn approximately $10,000 annually. Spelling mistake with annually, there should be two L's. Whereas someone in a similar position in the US may earn more than a six-figure salary. Cool, a six-figure salary is very nice vocab. Thus, again, candidate shows very good cohesion. By this freedom, not by this freedom, maybe according to this freedom or with this freedom, they will earn higher salaries, but they don't say in which situation. You have to say they will earn higher salaries if they move abroad, because it's not immediately clear. Maybe with this, okay, thus with this freedom, they could earn or they would earn higher salaries, which means a better quality of life if they moved to the US. So just missing that conditional clause. Okay. Yeah, and it feels like it should be more hypothetical. Would instead of will, maybe. But the critical point here is you're just missing that conditional clause which ties it together. And a better quality of life. I know quality of life, when we use a good quality of life, a bad quality of life, a high quality of life, a low quality of life, even though quality is often an uncountable noun, when we use low, high, better, worse, we put an a before it. Not an easy grammar point to know, but okay. In conclusion, nice simple signposting language, and then we get this very strange capital letter with although. I don't know why candidates do this sometimes. Well, maybe, I don't know. In English, we capitalize letters at the beginning of sentences. Not after commas. We also capitalize I as the subject pronoun. We all know this. And we capitalize proper nouns, names of places, countries, people, mountains, seas. We capitalize proper nouns. We do not capitalize our cohesive devices like this. Okay. Although I argue that people should be free to choose where to work, I think that if professionals, such as doctors and engineers, use free government services like education and scholarships, they must pay, maybe they should have to pay is just better here. They should have to pay, I don't know if it's a fine. Fine is when you break the law. I think they should have to maybe pay the government back, or nice word here, to reimburse the government, to reimburse. So I don't think fine is the right word you're looking for here. In order not only to is better. In order not only to. Just a slight problem there. In order not only to compensate for the government's investment, but also be able to work. Yeah, but so they pay the fine, sure, to compensate the government's investment, but pay the fine to be able. So there are two things here. You're talking about the justification for the fine, but then you're also talking about the opportunity that paying the fine will provide. But you're putting those together as if they are two things that are the same. So not quite right towards the end there. But okay. Let's get into some marks here. So task response for this one. I think there is enough for a 7 for the task response. I am clear on the candidate's position here. I know that the candidate thinks that yes, they should be free, but only if they pay a fine. And I know that there's a reason why governments invest in people, so that's why people should pay them back. It's only fair. I give to you, you give to me, cool. But then there's the other hand, which is like we want to protect the freedom of right, the freedom of movement. So I am aware of the candidate's position. There are some parts that leave me wanting more, like saying it's democratic. It's like, well, what do you mean there by democratic? What do you mean? Not sure. Democratic means, you know, you give a lot of people the chance to choose the people in power or to make a decision about something. So I'm not quite sure. So there are a couple of points where I'm hungry for more, but in general, I am aware of the candidate's position. Coherence and cohesion. I think there's enough for an 8 here. I think it is very skillful. It bounces from point to point, from paragraph to paragraph, all very linked. You get the some might argue, a little bit of sloppy things like some others on the other hand. I'm not a big fan of some others on the other hand. I'm not quite sure that we get, like, in other words, I don't think this in other words fully connects to the idea that it's expressed there, but I really love the signposting from like some, in other words, furthermore, as a result, nice variety. It's really good, and logical flow from paragraph to paragraph and logical flow inside the paragraphs is very strong. Cool. Lexical resource. Now this one's going to be tricky. Firstly, let's find the spelling mistakes. Annually, spelling mistake. Does it stop me from understanding? No. Intellectually. Does it stop me from understanding? No. Is it a spelling mistake? Yes. Believe. Do I understand it? Yes. But is it a spelling mistake? Yes. So a couple of spelling mistakes. Well, more than a couple. Governments get 4 spelling mistakes. So that makes them kind of more noticeable than they should be, but they don't get in the way of understanding. So that's good. This use of democratic, again, strange use of language. Graduate studies, not quite sure if graduate studies is the best term. And easier maybe isn't very precise. Easier in what way? Like financially easier, or like in terms of like stress levels easier? So easy just isn't the most precise word, but that's fine. One of the basic human rights instead of a basic human right. Strange. But okay, in terms of prepositions, collocations, things like this, very, very strong. Okay, to pay a fine, pay a reasonable fine, to compensate for, very good collocation with compensate for, to work freely, hitting the adverb. Freedom of choice, very nice. This implies, beautiful. Invest heavily, I like very much. The latter, this is high level, very skilled stuff. So I think the candidate's vocab is probably on the level of 8, but if we took away all of the candidate's mistakes or inappropriacies with vocab, I think the candidate's vocab ceiling is an 8. But because of the misspellings and because of the kind of strange use of words with easier and and there was one more that I mentioned that I forgot exactly. I think that just about pulls it down to a 7. But the candidate does have amazing vocabulary. Grammatical range and accuracy. Nice variety. There are a few mistakes like, let's see. Okay, article, a better quality of life. That's such a small thing. Capitalization mistake there. Candidate's modality isn't perfect. So there is a difference, and I know it's a pain, but in English there is a difference between you should do something, you have to do something, and you should have to do something. And the candidate mixes up have to with should have to. And that is just a small nuance, but it is, I would expect a band 9 to know that, and maybe even a band 8 to know that. Had trained, so you get an attempt at past perfect, but it's not really well used. I like this, like so as to, even though it's of course part cohesion, but it's also grammatical structure, so as to do something by moving abroad. So simple gerunds are fine. Nice subordination with although da 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 da, comma, I think da 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 da. Cool. If professionals use, then they must. So this first conditional is hit. Yeah, control is very strong. They get that wrong preposition there. I mean, this is choosing the wrong preposition is usually a vocab thing, but freedom of choice to where to work. Grammatically, the candidate should know work to where is odd. But okay. Can I? Yeah, so I'm just for those that problem with the modality that came up twice, and this misuse of past perfect feels a bit unfair, and maybe just a slightly wider range of grammar, like in order not only to, I prefer maybe a 7, but I wouldn't be surprised if the candidate got an 8 here. Again, I tend to mark a little bit more strictly than the average examiner, so I wouldn't be surprised if this overall mark was a 7.5, but for me I'm giving a 7.0, but I really wouldn't be surprised if it was a 7.5. Candidates vocab is amazing. Candidates coherence and cohesion and writing skill, academic skills, how to develop, how to logically flow through the essay, those skills are very, very strong from the candidate, so well done. Please don't be disappointed with a 7.0. I wouldn't be surprised if this got a 7.5, and in the real test you probably have the potential maybe to get an 8.0 if everything goes well, but I don't know. Who am I? Yeah, so I hope that breakdown of this candidate's writing was useful for you. Of course, if you would like your own writing check, or if you would like a free practice speaking test with feedback, you can do this by applying through the Telegram channel. Yeah, maybe I can show that Telegram channel just very quickly. So on Telegram, I am Expert Examiner. A link to my Telegram chat can be found below. Basically, every week I post 2 messages if you'd like a speaking test, or secondly, if you would like a writing check. I post those 2 messages every week, and then you, if you're interested in this, you just reply saying, yes, I'm interested, or please consider me, or yes, I'm in, whatever. At the end of each week, then 3 candidates are selected for the writing check, 3 candidates are selected for the speaking check, and this happens every week. So if you are interested in applying for your own writing check, your own speaking check, you have to do this through the Telegram channel. Anyway, I will leave it there for now. Have a wonderful evening, wonderful day, wherever you may be, and see you again soon. Bye bye.